hope you're doing amazing. Today I wanted to debut my Breaking Generational Curses and Bond spell so that you can be free and we can be free from any harmful energetic patterns that our ancestors may have put on our bloodlines, or that we in past lives as our own ancestors have put on ourselves and our bloodlines, to kind of rectify that as best as possible. At least as far as me, I know that a lot of the issues that I face are a result of my own actions in past lives. So a lot of the weight of the spell is going towards that. But there are other ancestors, obviously, who have done things in the past that has been detrimental to me, to the bloodline. And this is also for just a purging and releasing for those. This is a very big, heavy spell. So please understand that the results are going to be kind of like dominoes falling. It would be a lot if just every single residual aspect of every single curse that was ever on you would just like obliterate. Usually it's a gradual dissolving, almost like putting something in vinegar and watching it dissolve over time. So this is more the effect of the spell. It is kind of like the vinegar, and then the ramifications in the months and years, continuing, you'll see a gradual lifting, a gradual releasing, and just a beautiful, wonderful freedom that you haven't known. And it can help start to break apart the mental patternings that keep a lot of us locked into curses. Because the truth of the situation is that a curse can only work if you agree with it on some level. So this is also working through breaking apart those toxic patternings and belief systems in the subconscious mind on an energetic level that support curses and help hold curses in place. So I've noticed a big change. I hope you notice a change as well. This has also been a spell that I've had the most interference with, especially internally. I, like my own inner saboteur, had tried so hard to talk me out of even doing the spell, kept convincing me that it wasn't needed, that I've done so much shadow work already, why do I need more? Just some weird stuff. Like, it's a long story, but, trying to convince me that my magic is inviting demons and all this stuff that's just not even true. I just received a little bit of energetic infiltration, like internally and also somewhat externally, that for a while made me a bit afraid to do the spell. So it took, from the time I knew that I needed to do it, it took a couple weeks to a month before I actually did it, because I needed to clear out all the fear of my own power and the fear of actually being free, and clear out the nonsense or the self-sabotaging energies that were surrounding me and the spell specifically. So, this is it's an easier spell to mess up than some of the other spells that I've done. So I'm going to be a little bit more detailed in my explanations. If you follow the script that I give you, generally speaking, you'll be just fine. Like, there's nothing to worry about. I don't want to instill fear. I just want to put it out there that this is obviously a very heavy topic, a very heavy energies that you're working with. So you just want to take just a little bit more precaution than you would take for something that's super lovey-dovey, and there's no shadow work aspect involved at all. So that is just, a point of note. So first things first, I start with my Ankh. So my Ankh is my symbol for divine creation, for pretty much every spell that I've been doing in this series of spells. For healing the divine womb, breaking generational curses, the Ankh has been my main divine symbol that I've been using. It's great for divine feminine, it's great for healing and all those beautiful things. So it is kind of the centerpiece yet again. And then from there, I took 2 labradorite crystals. I am putting them on either side of my Ankh facing inward. If you've been watching my prior videos, you would know that a lot of my grids, especially when they're a series of spells, kind of build upon the grids that came before it. If you saw my inner child healing spell, you would know that these two crystals were also here last time, that they were more like this, kind of making more of a wing shape and more of a support system. But now they're kind of floating more on the outside. Still support systems. I consider labradorite to be a powerful crystal of spiritual healing, of grounding, of anchoring in, and all anchoring in energies from your higher self, or from the higher dimensions, as well as getting more clarity on your unique divine essence of what makes uniquely you. So having these crystals here still makes sense for this spell, and I have them kind of not so much as a support, like such a almost like a crutch, kind of a support, but more just kind of energetically kind of floating, supporting my ankh, and the energies are driving inward into the center. So from there, I have added a red crystal. It is pointing downward. And I did play around, depending on the direction of your altar, maybe you could change this, but my altar faces the north, and then this is the south, and I wanted the energies coming in and pushing down towards the bottom of my grid system, pushing energies down towards my candles, which will be on this end, and also just as like a supporting feature, funneling the energies that are created from this portal into the candles. So next I had 2 crystal quartz pointing inward, again just hitting the center point, and then it'll shoot downwards. So I have 2 clear quartz crystals on the northwestern and northeastern axis points of the ankh itself, and then I have another clear quartz crystal right here. So these are energies of just purity, of just kind of being a clear channel, being an open channel, just supporting the opening of the portal itself, making sure that the energies stay pure, angelic, and just in a form that really can be effectively utilized. And again, I have them on my southeastern and southwestern edge. From there, on the top of the ankh itself, I have another crystal. It is a very heart-centered crystal, and to me, it has like a deep resonance for, heart opening, especially those deep. What do I want to say? Like those deep, like DNA style wounds. The energy kind of emanating off of this crystal specifically just lends itself to a gentle release of that. And I'm blanking on the name, but I'm picking it up and I'm feeling into the energy, and energetically that's what it's doing. So that's why I made the choice to add it into this grid. Okay, and to finish off the grid, what I did is I added 2 clear crystal points on the east, and then another one on the west. I had 2 rose quartz crystals that I used on either side of my point. So basically what's happening is I'm using all the cardinal directions, funneling energy from the north down to the south, from the east and the west down to the middle, and then all of the north, south, eastern and western, and northeastern and western directions to point all into kind of this center area right here around the portal. And then the energy coming from the north is going to kind of push it downwards a little bit in here. So some of the energy is going down, and some of the energy is kind of staying very central and supporting the energy of the portal that I'm going to be opening right here. And from there, what I do is I will set up my candles. Okay, so that is essentially my grid. The next thing I did is I got my 2 candles that will be resting at the base here. It was really important for me to be careful about the shape of the candle holder specifically. I do have a couple other candle holders that I've used, but they are like square, and it was very important for me to not have like points at the base. I really needed the circle, and I didn't have any. So essentially what I did is I took this candle, like a tea light candle that I just bought on Amazon, and I took the candle out and used this holder right here as the holder. I think this works really great if you're in a pinch or if you only have one candle. With the two candles I had here, it kind of spilt over. So I don't know if I do this exact thing again, but it is great in a pinch. And now I have one red candle and one black candle. The red candle symbolizing my life force and the black candle symbolizing the toxicity from generational curses and bonds. I take a piece of red string that I just found this in my sewing kit. And essentially what I did is I wrapped the string together. I actually started from top to bottom. But actually first what I did is I anointed both of my candles. I put my black candle in my ancestors' healing oil and my red candle in my showers of abundance oil. I didn't put my black candle in my showers of abundance oil because I don't want those toxic energies like manifesting anything. It's just wasn't appropriate for that. And I'm not going to anoint them here because I want to be able to use these candles again. This is just a reenactment. But essentially what I did is I put the red candle and I just bound them very tightly after I anointed my candles in together to symbolize how tightly my life force up until the point that I casted the spell has been very much tied into old energies that have been making it harder for me to kind of manifest what I need and want because of, it's kind of weighing me down, kind of like a ball and chain. So this is kind of symbolizing how closely many of us can be tied to the traumas and, issues of the past. Okay, so now that I have my two things tied together, I just set it inside the jar here. This spell more than any other, it's a little bit heavy. I think it's, I don't want to freak anybody out, but I just feel like this spell is a little bit more prone to infiltration than any other. So I just wanted to take some extra precautions. So I just put some salt around the candle holder, just as a purification of the energies around what's going on inside the candle holder specifically, and helping that be a little bit separate from the grid, because it's really not for the energies, that's the alchemical process that's going on in these candles to really, kind of contaminate the energies that are coming from the grid itself. So I kind of put this salt around it just to kind of keep it a little bit quarantined off, so that, while this purging process is going on, it's very much, a one-way street in terms of energy. So energies can come in and assist, but there's not any toxicity really going out until, the end, when everything is kind of purged and transmuted. So I put a white ring of salt around my candles. I also wanted to put some extra oomph around this area itself around my candles, because I just felt again, this is a very heavy thing and it needed extra energetic support. So I extended my grid. This is shungite, a piece of black shungite, just to help with grounding and absorbing of any toxicity. Solodite for promoting inner clarity, peace, and calm. A piece of citrine, just to promote happiness and clarity. Oops, I'm running out of space a little bit. My altar is very wide, but not very long, so I have a tendency to kind of run out of space sometimes. A piece of citrine to promote happiness, joy, and continued clarity. A piece of Apache tears, again, for absorbing any negativity. And then a piece of, what is the name of this? I forgot the name again, but this is a great crystal for actually expanding the Kundalini. And to me, the Kundalini is very much tied into, sexual energy, and sexual energy It's life force energy, so it just made sense for this crystal to kind of be here as an added support, cleansing and purifying. I also had 2 candles on each side, so I just put a tea light candle on each side of this for support, and this is essentially the setup. This spell demanded more rigorous energetic and physical cleaning rituals than I normally do. Like usually I, am grabbing everything and touching everything. But in this spell, I was guided to actually put my lapis lazuli crystals that if you watch my prior spells, I've been putting around as almost like a container for the Ankh and the spell that I've been doing. Instead of it being around like my Ankh, it's been around my hands. So I had 2 crystals, each one on each hand. Lapis lazuli being a beautiful protective stone, royal stone. That was a type of like protection for me in doing the spell that I was guided to do. Also, I was guided to be very meticulous, like after every step that I did when I did with my anointing oil, I was guided to wash my hands. So then I put my salt down and then I'd wash my hands. And then I would tie my 2 candles together and then I'd wash my hands. And then I'd put my oils on and then I'd wash my hands. And it was just a very meticulous, like especially when I was touching and handling my black candle, that I had to make sure that after I was done, I was cleansing and washing whatever I had done to that black candle completely off. It was not supposed to stay on my skin. It wasn't really supposed to get on my red candle as little as possible, considering the fact that the 2 candles are touching. I just really, as much as I could do, was not supposed to have, these different aspects really mixing too much together to kind of reiterate that these are 2 completely separate energies, even though at the time that I cast my spell, they were bound together, to treat them as separate to help prepare for that energetic separation. All right, so this is the result of my spell. I have my 2 candles here, which have obviously been bound together by the red string. And if you notice, there are 2 orbs flying in the middle of the candle, and it looks like a heart. If you look closely, the 2 orbs are basically stuck together and they're making like a heart-like shape right in the center, which I think is really interesting because ultimately, this is a reminder from Spirit that this is a spell of oneness. We like to pretend that darkness and light are completely separate from each other and, that you have to push it away from you. But the reality of the situation is that it's all one, and from a higher perspective, it's all love. And it's also a reminder that really you can't change anything if you're changing it from a place of anger or hatred. I think a lot of time when people do like breaking curses spell or banishing spell, they're kind of doing it from a place of revenge, like, take that kind of crap. That's pretty immature. In order to do this spell effectively, you really have to focus on the truth, which is that, in many ways, the darkness is here to help you and teach you and give you a challenge to empowerment. And once you do reach an empowered place, you release those curses with love. And that is really how you end a cursed situation. So that's what the heart is reflecting here. And if you notice, here's a different shot of it. Maybe it'll be easier to see. This is the heart and the 2 orbs kind of floating at the top of your screen there in green. And here you see now the candles burned down a little bit. The 2 orbs have now begun to separate, and the flame has begun to separate as well. So before, the flame was one big massive flame with 2 orbs completely stuck together, which again is how representative of how my life force was stuck together to these kind of heavier energies. And now as the candle's burning, you see that the orbs have separated, they're not stuck together anymore, and the flames have separated as well. So that's a sign that it's working, because I noticed just watching other people's work, which I don't follow that closely, but I'll be scrolling through my Instagram and I'll notice that, other witches will be using 2 really separate flames. They make a point to separate with the string. I think that helps with helping the string to burn a little bit easier, but it doesn't really do anything to assist in the effectiveness of the spell. Like, you don't need your candles miles apart to have an effective breaking curses, breaking cords spell. It's just, up to you. But I was guided by spirit to put my 2 candles together. Ultimately, this is the result as it burns down. There's more separation. And I also, when I casted the spell, as I lit the candle, I literally felt my body lift. It was more like I didn't literally lift off the ground, like my feet like floating, but I could feel myself jumping into another reality. Like I could just feel my body floating away from where I was. And it was actually a little bit scary, but I just went with it because this was what was needed for me. And yeah, I ended up in a completely different reality as a result of that. And as a result of that, I have been generally much more empowered. I've been able to kind of break away from some toxic relationships that have been in my life. I've been able to have more confidence, more freedom, a greater sense of self, a greater sense of self-respect, to be more grounded in what I know, more confident in what I know, and more willing to carry that forward in a meaningful way. It's Arien with Arien Gabriella. Please sure to like, share, and subscribe for more videos like this.